Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. NASCAR drivers Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr., TV announcer Vern Lundquist, actor Sally Struthers from All in the Family, and country music recording artist Lyle Lovett. You might not have realized that all these were Lutherans. As we approach Reformation Sunday, we are celebrating our heritage of faith by looking at some truly famous or influential Lutherans from history. Today, we look at one I really didn't know much about, Dag Hammarskjold. To tell you the truth, it really didn't start out in the most promising way. Born the son of a Swedish prime minister, he received degrees in both law and economics, and he soon developed a successful career as a public servant. Early in his career, he was chairman of economic institutions in Sweden as they recovered from World War II, and by 1952 he was appointed to be the chair of the Swedish delegation to the United Nations. In November of 1952, the General Secretary of the United Nations resigned, and after that, there was a period where there was a lack of consensus on how the United Nations would move forward. The Security Council needed to make a recommendation for someone to serve as the General Secretary, but for lots of political reasons, no viable candidate was put forward who satisfied everyone. Finally, Hammarskjold was suggested. That took everyone by surprise. At the time, Hammarskjold's reputation was that of a brilliant economist, an unobtrusive technician, and an aristo bureaucrat. In fact, when the United States State Department heard of the suggestion, they began scrambling around to try to find out who he was and what his qualifications were. He was an unknown. They commissioned Henry Cabot Lodge to try to find out. And in the end, because of the political situation at the time, Lodge voted in favor, telling the State Department that Hammarskjold may be as good as we can get. Hammarskjold was elected as General Secretary precisely because nobody expected much out of him. By the way, when the vote was taken and a reporter called Hammarskjold with the news, it happened to be April 1st, and Hammarskjold thought it was an April Fool's prank. Only after a third phone call did he believe the news. Here's what his letter accepting the nomination said. With strong feeling of personal insufficiency, I hesitate to accept candidature, but do not feel I could refuse to assume the task imposed on me should the UN General Assembly follow the recommendations of the Security Council, by which I feel deeply honored. That sense of humility was born out in his service. On taking the job, he immediately went around and met as many employees of the UN as he could, ate in the cafeteria like the other employees, and opened up his private elevator for general use. During his term, he tried to establish better relations between Israel and Arab states, and he went to China and negotiated the release of 11 United States pilots who had been captured and imprisoned during the Korean War. He was involved in several other important concerns of the day, including allowing the Vatican to have representation at the UN. By far the most significant thing was his effort to resolve a conflict in the Congo. Many nations in Africa were undergoing decolonization and also struggling to set up their own governments. As a result, some devolved into conflict, and some of those turned violent. Hammarskjold got involved trying to keep the peace. He made 4 trips to the Congo and also sent 20,000 UN peacekeepers to the region. He was on his way to negotiate a ceasefire when his plane crashed, and he and the other 15 passengers were killed. After his death, His diary was published in a book called Markings, and it has become a well-known work reflecting a deep spirituality and a searching faith. Hammarskjold was and remains well regarded internationally as a capable diplomat and administrator, and his efforts to resolve various global crises led him to being the only posthumous recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. He is considered one of the 2 best UN Secretaries General, and his appointment has been hailed as one of the most notable successes for the organization. John F. Kennedy called Hammarskjold the greatest statesman of our century. I remember seeing a movie where an important line went something like, "It is precisely the people no one expects anything of who do the thing no one expects." Perhaps we might think of Hammarskjold that way, a mustard seed in God's hands. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.